Hello everyone, welcome to WD18, the Watford fan channel. It's another match preview. It is Watford versus Wycombe Wanderers at Vicarage Road. I'm your host Jacob, joined by Sam and Elliot as usual, as we take a look ahead to tomorrow's game, which is on the back of a defeat at the Vitality Stadium against Bournemouth. We're going to be discussing the Bournemouth game, we're going to be discussing Wycombe, and we've got a Q&A that you guys have been sending in your questions. We don't unfortunately have a Wycombe fan on today. We couldn't really get one on, but that's not a problem. We're going to replace that segment with a Q&A and questions from you guys. So if you haven't got your question in on Twitter, make sure you leave it in the live chat and we'll get round to answering your questions. But first off, lads, Sam, how you doing, mate, first of all?
Yeah, I'm doing all right. Do you know what? It's started to get to the point now where my lockdown trim's really kind of coming through.
And you did the sides, didn't you? You did the sides.
Yeah, I did the sides because they were like to us, right, you're not going back to school until the middle of March. So I was like, start of February, I was like, do you know what? I'm just going to do the sides now, might as well. And now it's catching up with me now. So the sooner that opens, that's better. But other than that, yeah, I'm excited for the game tomorrow night.
I don't think it looks too bad, mate. I think you've got away with it.
Just, I mean, it could be much worse, but it's just, I think everyone's in the
great
same
hair.
situation.
Elliot, how's your lockdown trim, mate?
I think you could. Yeah, I think you can tell it's not good. I've never been known for having a particularly special haircut, but I think it's especially poor at the moment. I think I need another trip at some point soon. I don't
short
know
back in size.
Yeah, just need it done.
Top man. I'll tell you what, we'll kick it off with the Bournemouth game at the weekend, Sam. What needs to change for the Bournemouth performance that we saw on Saturday? What was a little bit concerning for you in that defeat?
Just kind of the lack of urgency when we went a goal down. I think I've been the first one to praise our desire and our effort to get back into games, and I'm not saying that wasn't there against Bournemouth. I think they frustrated us and our players looked quite tired, but I just think that we need to kind of be pushing against kind of adversity when we do have challenging situations in matches and certain challenging scenarios. We need to find ways of overcoming that and hopefully use that to kind of get the 3 points tomorrow.
Elliot, what about you? Similar question. What was it about that Bournemouth performance? Because as we, going into the game, we were full of confidence, and it was the other way around where Bournemouth, as we mentioned with Sam Davis from the back of the net, he was all doom and gloom, and we were going into it with real confidence. And then we just didn't really turn up. I think the word that we used in the match action was maybe a lack of tempo, lack of intensity. Was it just as simple as that for you?
It was a little bit. I don't know if it was underestimating Bournemouth necessarily, but we allowed them too much space at times. I don't think we really got going after 20 minutes or so. It was just a bit of a poor performance. It felt like a bit of a blip rather than something we should be more scared about. And now we've got the opportunity against Wycombe, which is the games, if you compare them, they're going to be chalk and cheese. You've got a side that's going to want to attack from the off in Bournemouth, and you've got a bit of a rivalry there. I don't want to call it a proper rivalry, but it is a bit of a rivalry. And then you've got.
I think we can now. I do think.
Sam's keen to call it a rivalry.
I think now.
Sam really doesn't like Bournemouth.
I can't stand him. But I think now, particularly with kind of what happened the other day, I think that the players now kind of have that sense of rivalry with them again. But hopefully we don't have to play them again this season when we go up automatically and they finish outside the playoffs. So
I man, I would lump I'd lump a lot of money on a playoff semi-final or final. A lot.
I couldn't
on that because
you just know
it feels inevitable.
You just know Jefferson Lerma will score the winner as well or something like.
Well, Tom said it in the comments.
Pearson, maybe.
Yeah, on the comment section of our match reaction, he said, "See you at Wembley." I do have to agree with you, Elliot. It does feel inevitable, doesn't it? It does. It does. It's a little bit concerning. I tell you what, Sam, from that's already making my stomach turn a little bit. A playoff final. Oh my god! Not even being allowed to be there. That would be difficult. Sam, in terms of Wycombe, does this game? On paper, we talk about on paper again, and that phrase has been used a lot this season with Watford. But obviously, Wycombe are bottom of the league with 23 points. Play one game less than us, but they're bottom by a little bit of a distance. And we're the favourites going into it despite the result of the weekend. Is it the right game at the right time, or do you see this as a banana skin for Watford?
I think we have to be cautious. I think in the Championship you can't take anything for granted. They gave us a really, really difficult game back at Adams Park earlier in the season where, I watched the highlights back and I think they probably should have won it. I think they scored a goal that was disallowed and
Foster,
questionable there. And we got a bit lucky. We were really poor that night. However, I do think that it's coming at a good time with the fact that the sort of game it's going to be, they're going to sit deep, and we can probably afford to probably rest no more than 2 or 3 players tomorrow night. So I think in terms of the fatigue that we've mentioned in the squad, it's probably coming at a good time with that, but we can't take for granted that it's a guaranteed 3 points, and we're going to have to really dig deep and, be up for the physical battle tomorrow night.
Sam, just elaborating on that, you said maybe 2 or 3 changes. Who would you change if at the Bournemouth team?
So obviously we got the 2 enforced changes. João Pedro will come out. I'd bring in Stipe Perica. It wouldn't shock me if he brought in Andre Gray, but I think Perica's probably more suited to this game. Dan Gosling, I imagine, will come in for Nathaniel Chalobah. Other ones I'd make, I think this is the perfect game for Phillips Incanagel to start. I know we say it every week that he should start, but this is genuinely the perfect one, because he's going to get time on the ball because they're just going to sit off. We're going to need that kind of play to play that kind of killer pass against that deep back line. So it's going to be important for him to start, I think, probably over Ken Sema. And it wouldn't shock me as well if they brought in Ashraf Lazar over Adam Messina, perhaps change one of the centre halves. But yeah, I think we will see a couple of changes tomorrow night.
Yeah, I'll just bring up this comment from Peter Watts, who says, player mentality is a big thing now. Wycombe will sit deep and play for a draw. Without Pedro, we need to have as much attacking flair as we can. I guess that's what you mean in that respect, Sam, about Zinchenko coming in, having that little bit of creativity. I
don't think it's even flair, though, because I'm talking about within the final third. I'm not... Because when I think flair, I think of the likes of João Pedro, the likes of players who can run in behind, get around 4 or 5 players. But I think in this case, it's literally going to be a player who can hold the ball up, bring others into the game, and create opportunities as that last kind of forward man. And I think probably Perica is the best man available to kind of do that. So I do agree with you about mentality, but whether it's about attacking flair, I'm not sure if I agree with that.
Thank you for the comment, Peter. Elliot, actually, I wanted to ask you about Wycombe. As Peter says, Wycombe will sit deep and play for a draw. Is that what we can expect from them again, similar to the reverse fixture?
Yeah, I don't want to maybe stereotype them that easily, but they are a very, very typical bottom half championship side, in the sense that if they play against one of the bigger teams, one of the teams higher up in the table, they will sit back and they will defend. They did that against Norwich for most of the game, and they still managed to lose. I think it was 2-0 in the end. And luck hasn't gone their way this season. But they aren't they haven't been a great team at many stages this season. Their form at the moment is not awful. It's not bottom of the league standard. I think they've won 2 in their last 5. They beat Reading and they did pretty well against them. So that there are positives for Gareth Ainsworth to take from it, but they are going to sit deep. They are, they've got Adebayo Akinfenwa, they've got Uche Ikpeazu, they've got...
He's played for Watford, didn't he?
He used to play for Watford, yeah. And they've got some attackers that will cause us problems. Fred Onyedinma is also... I quite like Fred Onyedinma. I think maybe he could stay in the Championship even if Wycombe go down. They'll give it their best shot. I think they will sit deep and defend, but I think they will have a couple of moments. I know Joe Jacobson at left back's very good as well. Scott Cashkit, if he comes in, will be good as well. So they have got some good players, but they will sit deep. They will defend a lot, and it might be a bit of a typical performance that we've faced a number of times this season where we have struggled. So it'll be an interesting test for Watford to see how we approach it. I agree with Sam. I don't think Andre Gray is quite the right player for this, because I think he actually tries too hard sometimes to create chances. And if you're playing against a team that is so defensive and sits that deep, then I don't think Andre Gray will find a way through. Stipe Perica is a little bit better. He's good at holding the ball up. He's not really a target man despite his height, but he can cause problems for the defenders. He's physical enough, and he's also very quick. He's quick enough that we wouldn't lose a yard of pace having not got João Pedro in the team. So it's a difficult one, but I think Watford have enough quality to comfortably win the game, but it's about the approach and the mentality going into it. It's going to be a difficult one.
I feel like, I've been one to say that Troy Deeney probably shouldn't be starting for this Watford side anymore, but I feel like this would have been kind of a game kind of tailor-made for him, where he can have his back to goal and he can kind of get physical with that back line. So I think Troy will be a miss tomorrow night, even though it's been really good to see kind of the other strikers getting a go at the moment.
Elliot, you mentioned Perica there. Just on him, do you think we play to his strengths a lot of the time? Because I think Jordan might have mentioned it on the match reaction, how in stature he is, as you mentioned, a kind of target man physique. But in reality, there's a lot more to his game. Do we need to I mean, the Bournemouth game at home, that really great move. I think Cathcart switched the ball over, Sarr on the right-hand side, Paritza made that run across the box. Is it just about playing to his strengths a little bit more? Because I think maybe sometimes we use him as a target man, which I find a little bit strange.
It is strange, and I think another one that sums him up quite well is against Birmingham away, where he was brought on sort of as a right winger, sort of in the Sarr role, and he did really well. Burst in front of Christian Pedersen, I think it was, and won a penalty. So he's a very quick, very instinctive forward. He makes very good runs. So I think we do play to his strengths in some senses, and I think there is a way that we can make that work tomorrow night if we can play the right crosses. I don't think constantly looping them into the box against a team like Wycombe would work. But I think if we hit the right crosses, if we play them at the right time, and sort of, we do play to his strengths and we do put in the low crosses perhaps, then I think he could do very well tomorrow. His goal scoring record, considering he's barely started, is pretty good, because a goal against Bournemouth is nothing to turn your nose up at. So I think we've seen some quality from him. He's had pretty bad luck this season with injuries, and then the dodgy elbow that he did in the League Cup game. So he's had pretty rotten luck this season. And Xisco Munoz said today in his press conference that he would like this to be an opportunity for those players to prove themselves that would be in, instead of João Pedro and Nathaniel Chalobah. I think it's the perfect opportunity for Stipe Paritza to maybe say to João Pedro, I'm also here. I'm a pretty good striker as well, and I can take your spot if you're not careful. So it's a good problem to have. I think this is probably the perfect time for João Pedro to be suspended if there is one.
Yes, and it's great insight from Elliot on Wycombe, Sam. And when you hear that, Charlotte mentioned in the comments, what formation should we play tomorrow? Do you think Paritza can operate effectively in a 4-3-3?
It's a really difficult one, because personally, as good as Elliot's insight is, I don't know too much about Wycombe other than when I've watched them a couple of times this season against us and on Sky in general. But I would still stick with the 4-3-3, particularly because I think that three midfield works so well, whether it's Gosling or Chalobah. I think Cleverley and Hughes have to stay in there, and I think they work most effectively in the 4-3-3, and in a game where they're most probably going to get a lot of the ball and they're gonna, carry on being those work engines in the middle. I think it will be important for us to kind of stay with that. Whether we go with, two up front instead and kind of one behind and kind of an attacking midfielder role is perhaps something that we could see tomorrow. But I do think it will be a 4-3-3.
Yeah, it's an interesting shout about the 4-4-2. Jack says here, personally, I don't like it, but tomorrow maybe we should. Is there a fair argument, Elliot, that we do switch to a 4-4-2? Because with the 4-3-3, it does really rely on there being space in behind for the two players to exploit, the two wingers, that is, to exploit. And we know with Wycombe, they're going to sit deep, they're going to sit compact, they're going to sit solid. So do you reckon there's a possibility that we could see a 4-4-2, just purely out of your kind of guessing? Not saying you're in the know with Xisco. I'm just saying,
I think it actually makes sense from a personnel perspective, not just from a tactical perspective, because we've got three fit and available midfielders that are senior at the moment. So to play a 4-3-3 is risky, because you've got all of your fit and available midfielders on the pitch at once if there's an injury. And I think that would be my reasoning not to start Ben Wilmot tomorrow, because we need someone that can play in midfield on the bench. Anyone. So if we play a 4-4-2, I can understand it. We'll have a spare midfield body that is on the bench if we need them to maybe switch things up. I don't know the conditions of players generally, whether they're match fit after what was a pretty intense and rough game on the weekend. So it may be that a player like Will Hughes or someone like that, just plucking a name out, might not feel completely up for 90 minutes tomorrow night. So maybe he'll drop to the bench and it's someone we can bring on 60 minutes in a 4-4-2. There's lots of different things that Xisco can do, and I think he's not limited in his options despite not having many midfielders available. It's a tough one, but I think a 4-4-2 makes sense in some ways and does make sense from a personnel perspective, because you've got Stipe Paritza and Andre Gray available. But in other senses, I don't think it would necessarily work, because there's one less creative midfielder in what would be quite a physical battle at times. So I'm pretty 50-50 on that. I think he'll stick with the 4-3-3 regardless, and I think it will be okay. But I can understand calls to switch things up.
Sam, impact of João Pedro obviously being out for this one, and Chalobah as well, two really big players. And I think you mentioned it recently about Chalobah's improvement in form. He's been superb. João Pedro, another one who was in fine form. It's such a shame that both of them are out. Impact on this Watford team. How do we maintain the levels that we saw before Bournemouth? Because those two players were absolutely instrumental in the way we were playing.
Yeah, it's in terms of João Pedro being out, I'll address that one first. I probably would have given him a rest anyway, regardless of him getting suspended on or late in the game on Saturday. So that one, it's not that it doesn't bother me too much. I still feel like he has to learn from that, and we've seen already he's got a hot head, but he needs to learn that he's going to cost us in big moments if he carries on like this. And with us coming to kind of that business end of the season with perhaps the playoffs, when things aren't going our way, we can't have him going off like that.
Yeah.
So it's a learning curve for him, and I think hopefully it's going to come out as kind of a blessing in disguise, the fact that he got sent off against Bournemouth, if we don't see that again for him. So it's not that bad that he's coming out, and it might not be probably the best suited game for him anyway. But I do think Chalobah may be a bigger miss. Particularly,
why do you think that, Sam?
I just feel that, first of all, in terms of him, I feel like he's growing in confidence. I feel like he's getting better by the week when he is playing. And he offers us something to this Watford side that I don't think a lot of players can offer in terms of that stability. He's getting better on the ball and off the ball as well. I think he's improving every single game. So I think for him, I think that will be really frustrating that he's going to have to come out for a couple of games because it's going to kind of stifle his development. But in terms of the team, I think while Dan Gosling is good, I love him as well for kind of what happened in the scrap the other day.
Already a Watford hero.
Yeah. I just feel like perhaps he doesn't offer what Chalobah does offer as well. And, he's probably a good impact player, but whether he's good enough to start a whole game, I think he struggled against, was the away at Preston, was it? That he started? Blackburn, that's it, yeah. I think he did struggle a bit in the Blackburn game. So really interesting for him tomorrow night to get his first home start, assuming he does come in. But yeah, I think Chalobah will be probably a bigger miss than Pedro.
Top stuff.
I've seen a couple of calls. I've seen a couple of times in the chat and a lot on social media for Dan Phillips to come in, and the situation there is a little confusing because he's not been in a matchday squad in the under-23s or in the first team, I think, since Manchester United in the FA Cup. So we don't know if he's injured. We don't know the story behind it. But the fact that he's not taken any part in any fixture for Watford in a little while suggests that he's either that he isn't match fit or available. So I don't think he'll be in the squad. And judging from the under-23s lineup today, it doesn't look like they're preparing or omitting any particular midfielders so that they'll be in the squad tomorrow night. So it's a tough one. I know Sonny Low-Everton is probably the natural central midfielder that we'd maybe see on the bench tomorrow night, but he has played today. So I think that was against QPR. So I don't think we'll see any under-23s of a central midfield variety on the bench tomorrow night.
I think going into that as well, should we just have a mention of the Carlos Sanchez transfer?
Yeah, I'll tell you what, Sam. We've got a question in the Q&A. So should we? I'll tell you what. We'll go on to that now. Let's go on to that now. Let me just have a little read through your guys' comments. Thank you to all of you who are watching at the moment. Really do appreciate it. Comment here saying Hughes that Tom Bashiri could be back soon. Absolutely.
Massive.
If we can get him back for the final 4 or 5 games of the season, that could be a massive, massive boost for us. Tom says Hungbo wasn't in the under-23 squad today. Wonder whether he'll be involved for us tomorrow. Rudy says I would definitely put Gosling in the lineup. Dylan says 4-2-3-1 could work. Maybe there's certainly up in the air whether we continue with the 4-3-3. And Peter says we never seem to utilise the under-23s. Dalby on loan, Hungbo and Phillips not featuring as much maybe as that he would have liked. Suleiman says I wouldn't mind having Wilmot at CDM. There's some more under-23 chat. I'll be interested to see if any of those guys do feature tomorrow.
It's a dangerous game. It's a dangerous game playing the under-23s, particularly at this stage in the Championship, where we're probably blessed with probably one of the strongest ever squads in the Championship in terms of depth as well. And perhaps it's not a case of it not being necessary to use the under-23s, but at this point of the season where you've got a toss-up between inexperience versus experience, you're always going to go with the experience. So it's a risky game, and I can kind of understand why we're not going with under-23s at the moment.
Yeah,
and George,
just to answer that with the under-23s, they're quite under-23s are finding it difficult as well because of coronavirus and because of other reasons and players being called up to the main squad. They've had quite a threadbare squad at the moment, and it's only just really got back to normal. There have been a lot of occasions where the under-18s have had to come up to the under-23s to play because they haven't had enough players or or they've relied on a number of trialists coming in, which is natural. I don't think that's a lack of preparation or anything. I think that's just a natural thing for plenty of under-23s teams at the moment. But it is very difficult for the youth sides as well. So I think it's even more hard at the moment to have players come into the main squad because they'll have to train with the squad. They'll probably, I don't know the COVID regulations, but I assume that they'd have to isolate with the squad, be in a bubble with the squad. So it is very difficult at the moment to just call them up here and there. I know Sam Dolby's out on loan because I've seen another few calls.
Where's he gone out on loan?
I think he's at Southport, but I might be wrong.
Southport, yeah, great, yeah.
Someone got injured. Well, so one of the under-23s was out on loan. Harry Forster, that's it. He got injured and he's been called back, I think, for his injury. So
that makes sense. Yeah. Wish Harry a speedy recovery. Elliot, you mentioned about the kind of difficulties with the under-23 squad, and George says here a return for success, but I'd imagine that is probably limiting his opportunity to get back in the squad. I don't know if there's different protocols, whatever.
Chisco spoke about that briefly today. Just it's a lot of the same thing at the moment with Isaac's success because it's a difficult injury and he's been out for a long time. So it's a lot of just slowly bringing him back, slowly reintegrating him. So he's been out with the under-23s for a little while now. And he's played minutes here and there. I think he's played 45 minutes. He came off, I saw it say, as a precaution the last game. I don't know if that means there was an injury or whether they just took him off because they thought they don't want him to get too much game time in one go. But I think we won't see Isaac's success for a couple of weeks yet. But that's just
probably not this season.
The trend.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, I can't imagine we'll see him this season.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I feel like we'll see him in a little bit, but I think it'll be a little while yet before he comes into the first team fold just because of how they're slowly reintegrating him with the under-23s.
Yeah, top stuff, lads. Right, we'll move on to some quick fire questions. We're going to fire some questions over to both Sam and Elliot. Thank you to everyone who put in their questions on Twitter at WD18fans, the same on Instagram as well. If you'd like to get involved with future Q&As, make sure you do go and follow us on there. That's where we tweet out. But if you haven't already, let us know your questions down in the live chat below and we'll get to them. Right, kicking it off. We've got one from Finn up here, Sam. I'm going to throw it to you as you brought it up. Does the departure of Domingos Quina confuse you even more that we're interested in Carlos Sanchez?
It's a really difficult one with Quina because I think there are multiple layers to that kind of loan happening. He obviously had fitness problems where, he got injured quite a bit at the start of the season. I don't think he thought that he would fit into Xisco Munoz's plans because I think when he left, we were still playing the 4-4-2 at that point, or we were just going into the 4-3-3. And it was before the point where Xisco changed it. So he probably didn't think he was going to get a look in. Don't quote me on this, but there could be attitude problems in there. We don't know as a young player whether anything could be going on there. So I think all of those kind of contributed to him kind of going out on loan to get more game time. And it's really good to see him doing well at the moment. But it doesn't confuse me even more, but it does.
What do you make of that? The speculation, Sam? Honestly, when you saw the news.
Yeah, I don't want to write off a player, but he's awful. He is so bad. I mean, I spoke to a West Ham mate, said it's one of the worst players he's ever seen in a West Ham shirt. And I mean, yeah, it's a body through the door. And as long as it's a short-term deal until the end of the season, just to get someone to make up the numbers in training or whatever, I'm not fussed. And here's hoping he can prove me wrong and, score the winner in the playoff final or something like that. But it's not something that really inspires me.
Yeah, I thought you weren't going to be too positive about that one, mate. I think to play devil's advocate with Carlos Sanchez, Elliot, I guess the thought process behind it is it's a 35-year-old midfielder, regardless of what people think about him. Is it probably better than bringing in a youngster at a crucial stage of the season? Probably. He's got a lot of experience. He's on a free. He's probably going to have limited game time. He's not going to come in as first choice central defence midfielder. So do you understand why we are linked with him? And do you understand the interest?
Yeah, I do. And I think also with what you said about it's better than a young player, we haven't really got many options in terms of young central midfielders to bring up anyway.
True.
It's an experienced head in the dressing room. He's got experience in Serie A and in the Premier League, so that's a positive. He hasn't played football in a while, which is what worries me. But yeah,
isn't it about a year when he left from West Ham? Yeah,
that's my main concern. Just that we've not got someone that can necessarily jump straight in if we need
True.
him. rather than his actual quality, because I think he could do a job. He's 35, which isn't ideal, but we've not really got a midfielder like him. We've not got one of the destroyer variety. I think he was called the Rock in Colombia, which is an interesting nickname. So it might be quite fun to bring him in. It's another player in there, and we do desperately need more players in midfield. We've seen Chalobah out, and now we've only got 3 fit and available central midfielders. So we do need another one in. For the people saying, why don't we sign X player, Y player instead? It's not often as simple as that. We can't necessarily go, okay, this guy's better, or this guy is higher rated on FIFA. We can jump in and sign him, because it's a lot more difficult than that. And it might just be that we need another central midfielder at the club, and he is the best available at the moment that is willing to come to Championship Watford.
I will never forget, Elliot and Sam, when we signed Victor Ababo, and the reaction online was immense when we realised 93 pace Ababo is going to be on Ultimate Team.
Absolute loss.
I'll tell you what, Sam, next question, mate. Let me just get one up here. Let us know some of yours in the chat below. We're going to go with what is our best centre-back partnership moving forward? Quick fire. If your two best centre-backs at Watford, or best partnership.
Wilmot Sierralta.
Wilmot Sierralta. Interesting. Someone said, when's the next watch along, if any? If you guys would like to see another watch along, leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, and let us know in the comment section. We're more than happy to bring it to you if you'd like to see it again. Elliot, an interesting one, this from Aaron_Bennis10. Aaron says, if Watford failed to come up and Hughes leaves, how much faith would you have that Tom Dele-Bashiru, assuming he gets back to his best, can be a ready-made replacement?
I've really liked Tom Dele-Bashiru, and I thought he was actually really, really good before his injury. And I thought actually against Reading in particular, the game where he got his injury, there seemed like there was a lot there and a lot of quality in how he plays. It's difficult with an ACL injury. He's got the benefit of his age, meaning that it probably isn't a career ruiner or anything like that. It will be a while before he comes back. I'm not sure he'll be back this season, but it's not necessarily about the recovery. It's about then getting used to being back on the pitch as well. I think because he's still young, he may get a loan move or something like that next season, just to get more consistent game time, because we won't play him every week when he's just come back from an ACL injury at Watford, whether we're in the Premier League or in the Championship. So it's a tough one. He could end up going out on loan. He could end up being on the bench quite a lot. It's a really difficult one to gauge, but I think he's definitely got the quality to be a natural successor to Will Hughes. And I think that there is a lot of potential in him to perform and to make it to the top. So I'm split there. It all depends on how Watford manage him, how serious the injury is, how he copes following the injury. So it's a lot of different things, but just if I had to answer one way, I'd say, yeah, there is the potential for that.
Nice. Sam, player of the season so far? Kiko. Next one, Elliot. Best Watford chant ever. That comes from Tactical Analyst.
No, there's one at Crystal Palace away, the last game before lockdown, that I don't think I could ever say on stream, but I did really enjoy that. It was quite a new one. I won't go into which one that was, but I did really enjoy that one. Other than that, I really like the Valan Barami chant.
What a chant!
They tried to recycle that as well, and it just didn't work. Like Richarlison, and
maybe it's that tune that I like, because that one crops up quite a lot.
My favourite was probably do you remember the Tommy Hoban one? Tommy Hoban's having the party.
Yeah.
That was like absolute class. Just in like as a concourse chant, like when everyone's in there before. Absolutely.
I think there's a video at Brighton away 2014-15 where pints are literally flying everywhere.
Absolutely.
So when he was on Hive Live the other day, someone asked, "You bringing Minari and Ben Watson with you to the studio?"
Absolutely.
Sam, yes or no? Will Hughesy leave if we don't go up?
Yeah, Tottenham all over
it. Next one, we've got a couple more before we wrap up. Actually, I'm going to throw this one again to you, Sam, because I think I asked a similar question to Elliot the other on the match reaction. Did the Bournemouth punch up at the punch up's probably a bit of a stretch, but did the Bournemouth punch up at the weekend deflect the Xisco substitutions in the match? Also, will we have enough to break down a stubborn Wycombe defence? So the first part of that, we'll throw it over to you. Did it maybe take the tension off his tactical decisions, do you think?
No, I don't think so. I think it was a boiling over of isolated incidents during the game. I think the players were frustrated over over the Chalobah incident. I think the players were generally frustrated that we'd lost the game and that João Pedro had been sent off. And I think eventually it all boiled over. I think regardless of Cisco's tactics, it would have boiled over anyway.
But do you mean what I think what he means in Sam is like from us fans' perspective, we were so concentrated on Lerma and the incident on the touchline. Do you think that maybe kind of deflected our attention towards the substitutions that he made? I think what he's trying to get at, but you might not agree with it.
It's a complicated question that.
It's an interesting one though, because I think our initial reaction after the game. I remember you ringing you, Sam.
I think I know it. I think we can't. Are you saying like we have to focus? Like the focus wasn't really on the Watford performance. It was more.
No, that's his question. I think.
I do get that. Yeah, 100%. But I think the main reason why, if you watch the match reaction back, we only spoke about Lerma for about 30 seconds, and we haven't spoken about it today until now. Because I think that's the incident's done now. Like unless we play Bournemouth in the playoffs, we're not going to see Jefferson Lerma again this season, or hopefully not Bournemouth again this season. So all we can focus on is, except for that, the performance wasn't good enough, and we have to take that into the rest of the season and hopefully improve. So for me, it's pretty irrelevant in the grand scheme of things, and it's something we can all probably laugh about in a couple of months.
Final question, Elliot. I'm going to chuck it over to you because you absolutely love the man. Should PZ7 finally get a full 90 minutes tomorrow? Yes or no?
I'd give him 70 because I think to have a first start, I would give him the full 90. But yeah, I'd give him from the start 70 minutes. Then bring on Joseph Hungbo.
Love it. We love Joseph Hungbo. Lads, that was a pleasure. Thanks so much for joining us. Thank you to everyone who watched tonight. Real pleasure always doing these. If you did enjoy, please leave a like on the video. We'll be back tomorrow. It will just be me and Sam. Hopefully we can get a guest on for tomorrow for the match reaction against Wycombe. Elliot is actually at the game, so we'll get the insight of Watford's performance. He'll see it firsthand. But if you did enjoy the video, guys, please do leave a like. Comment down below what you made of the stream. And give us your score predictions for tomorrow. Sam, quick fire.
1-0 Watford.
Elliot.
I have to agree, 1-0 Watford.
1-0 Watford. I'm also going to go with the 1-0 Watford. Keep it boring. That's 3-1
nils. It's going to be a really boring game. Like before we say that, I think it's going to be tediously boring. I think it's going to be incredibly scrappy. I think it's going to kind of be a one chance sort of game, and we have to take that opportunity. So 1-0 Watford. Yeah.
We've got some confident predictions in the live chat. Make sure you join us tomorrow for a match reaction, guys. Thank you very much for watching. And come on, you Hornets.